The official story of America goes like this. Humans crossed into North America from Asia roughly 13,000 years ago via the Bering Land Bridge, spread south over thousands of years, and developed their civilizations in complete isolation from the rest of the world until 1492. That's the textbook version. Today we're going through 10 discoveries found right here in the Americas that the textbook has absolutely no explanation for. Let's get into it. 3,400 years ago, a community of hunter-gatherers in northeastern Louisiana built one of the largest earthwork complexes in the ancient world. Concentric ridges, massive mounds, an engineering project that moved millions of cubic feet of earth. Here is the part that nobody can explain. A 2025 study from Washington University found evidence that the main mound, the size of a small pyramid, may have been constructed in as little as 30 to 90 days. Not years, not generations, months. Hunter-gatherers with no metal tools, no wheels, no organized state apparently decided to build a monument on a geological scale over a single season. How? Nobody knows. Why? Also, nobody knows. In the Ouachita Mountains of eastern Oklahoma, carved into the wall of a sandstone cliff, there are 8 runic symbols. Norse runes. In Oklahoma, the stone was first documented in the 1830s. The inscription is most likely translated as a territorial marker from the Viking Age, placed there by Norse explorers who apparently traveled not just to the northeast coast of North America, which we know happened, but deep into the American interior via the Mississippi and Arkansas river systems. The mainstream response has been that the evidence is inconclusive, but the runes are still there. In 1940, archaeologists in Nevada found a mummified human body wrapped in woven marsh plants. He was dated to 10,600 years ago, the oldest mummy ever found in North America. For decades, the remains sat in a museum while a legal battle over repatriation dragged on. DNA testing, finally completed in 2018, revealed that he was ancestral to Native American populations, but specifically most closely related to ancient populations in Patagonia, at the southern tip of South America, which raises a very awkward question about how a population related to people at the bottom of the continent ended up in Nevada 10,600 years ago. In 1889, a Smithsonian archaeologist named John Emmert was professionally excavating a burial mound in Loudoun County, Tennessee, when he found a small stone tablet at the head of a skeleton. The inscription on it was initially described as Cherokee. 80 years later, a scholar realized that it had been read upside down. Flipped the right way, the letters were ancient Paleo-Hebrew, reading "for the Judeans." The stone came from a sealed, undisturbed mound. It was excavated under professional conditions by the Smithsonian. How a 2,000-year-old Hebrew inscription ended up in a Tennessee burial mound is something that has never been satisfactorily explained. Between 18,000 and 22,000 years ago, a culture called the Solutreans lived in what is now Spain and France and made stone tools using a very specific technique, a method called overshot flaking that produced a distinctive blade shape. It's so specific that archaeologists can identify it immediately. In the 1990s, researchers began finding those exact tools, same technique, same shape, on the eastern seaboard of the United States, buried in layers dating to roughly 20,000 years ago. This is 7,000 years before the Bering Strait crossing. The Solutrean hypothesis, that Ice Age Europeans crossed the Atlantic along the ice edge, is genuinely debated by mainstream archaeologists. The tools exist, where they came from is still an open question. In the desert of New Mexico between 850 and 1150 CE, someone built a complex of massive stone structures aligned with extraordinary astronomical precision. The summer solstice, the winter solstice, the 18.6-year lunar standstill cycle, all of it encoded into the architecture. There is also a road network radiating out from the Chaco for hundreds of miles in perfectly straight lines. No curves, no accommodation for terrain. The roads lead to, as far as anyone can determine, nothing. No settlements at the ends, no resources, just roads going straight out into the desert and stopping. Nobody has a complete explanation for these roads. 35 miles south of Albuquerque, New Mexico, on the side of a hill called Hidden Mountain, there is an 80-ton boulder. Carved into its surface, in ancient Paleo-Hebrew script, is an abbreviated version of the Ten Commandments. Geologists who have studied the inscription note that the weathering of the carved letters is consistent with extreme age. Some scholars date it as far back as 2,000 years. Others call it a 19th century hoax. Nobody has definitively proven either position. What is not in dispute is that someone carved the Ten Commandments in ancient Hebrew onto a boulder in New Mexico, and that either that happened 2,000 years ago or someone went to an extraordinary amount of effort for a prank in the desert. In 1996, 2 college students found a human skull on the bank of the Columbia River in Washington state. The skeleton turned out to be a 9,000-year-old skeleton, one of the most complete ancient human skeletons ever found in North America. And his skull didn't look like any known Native American population. Physical anthropologists described the features as closer to Polynesian or Ainu, the indigenous people of Japan. A legal battle between scientists and Native American tribes kept the bones locked up for 9 years. DNA testing eventually confirmed he was ancestral to Native Americans, but the physical features that don't match that conclusion have never been fully explained. Science said the DNA settles it, but the skull is still confusing people. In 1998, archaeologist Albert Goodyear was digging below the Clovis layer, below what was supposed to be the earliest possible evidence of humans in North America, at a site in South Carolina called Topper. He found stone tools, roughly shaped, cleanly worked by human hands, buried in sediment that some researchers have dated to 50,000 years ago. 50,000! The Bering Land Bridge crossing happened roughly 13,000 years ago. If those tools are what some researchers think they are, there were people in South Carolina 37,000 years before that. The mainstream archaeological response has mostly been to not engage with the Topper findings rather than disprove them, which is a choice. In 1982, marine archaeologist Robert Marks was diving in Guanabara Bay off the coast of Rio de Janeiro when he found something on the ocean floor. Twin-handled ceramic jars heavily encrusted with barnacles. Roman amphoras, the kind used to transport wine and olive oil across the Mediterranean 2,000 years ago. Marks reported his findings, and then the Brazilian government banned him from re-entering the country. Then Brazil placed a complete ban on all underwater exploration in the bay. Then, and this is the part, the Brazilian Navy allegedly poured concrete over the site. The official explanation was that Marks was suspected of looting. The Brazilian Navy denied covering the site. What is undeniable is this: Roman jars were found at the bottom of a Brazilian bay, and the government's response was to make sure nobody could go back and look at them. Whether that's because the artifacts were modern forgeries or because ancient Romans reached South America and someone decided that was inconvenient, that question is currently buried under several feet of concrete at the bottom of Guanabara Bay. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I will see you again soon.